paying $194,000 to Excelis. We switched to this model, which cuts that front end premium to $123,000. They, in 2019, full plan year experience, spent $41,000 on the actual claims on the HRA. So their total spend in 2019 was $164,000, resulting in $30,000 of savings, year one.
Can you tell us who the town is?
Town of Bath. And if you, we're always willing to share a reference if you wanted to speak to their super or their clerk. That's always an option available for our clients as well, and they're more than willing and happy to do that.
Can you give them a list of towns in Steuben County that you service? So they could speak to maybe more than just
Sure.
that?
Yeah,
Good
town of
idea.
Horn Beach, town of Corning, town of Baldwin.
I mean, write it down so that they
Sure.
can do this,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, we can get a list, at least 3 or 4, if we speak to them, that we get the phone numbers and make sure that they're willing to give the recommendation. Happy to do that.
Judy, did you happen to read the union contract?
Yeah, I did.
Did it have anything in there that we had to go with that local?
No, we don't, we just have to.
Provide it.
I should have marked this section. The employer agrees to pay 75% of the cost of medical and dental. The town shall provide the Blue Choice Value Plan from the local 71 health and welfare plans, including the dental plan. The town will continue to offer a health insurance stipend for additional medical expenses of the amount of $450 for each of the contract. An employee who, no, we don't care about
Okay.
that.
But because, go back to that first one.
No, here, the town reserves the right to change insurance
Okay.
carriers or to become self-insured if it deems necessary. However, the town agrees to provide at least equal benefits to the coverage contained in the Blue Value contract. At least equal benefits shall be construed to mean acceptability of coverage in the medical community. And then the town agrees to consult with the union in respect to any proposed change in the health insurance coverage. If the union does not agree that the proposed change of insurance carriers provides at least equal benefits, the parties shall enter into negotiations in respect to the equal benefits provision in an attempt to resolve the controversy.
Okay, so
But this is
because-
actually better for the.
Right, but it also said dental, so we just passed a resolution to change it, but I think you have.
We don't have the dental through the local 71, we have the dental now
But
through
it says
Shelter
if
Point.
you're gonna change it, you gotta check with them. So I just wanna
Oh,
make
yeah,
sure.
no, well, we would obviously
Okay.
check with them, but, yeah, for both of them.
Does it change anything for prescription coverage?
It's subject to the deductible, and so depending on if it's generic or what it is, you're going to get billed for it, as opposed to just what your copay is out of pocket now. But that bill is where that credit card would come in, and you're going to pay for that bill with the credit card, which isn't that's tied to this, it's tied to the town.
So how much goes on the
So I don't understand the copays and the deductible part of it.
You don't have it.
You don't have a copay.
You use that card instead, Martha.
Okay,
And it's, the money's set aside for that.
Right.
okay.
So,
good?
on the right-hand side of this is kind of the full, so this document will help with the question. Someone that is looking at,
Medical,
the lead is page 3.
anything medical related, that was my leftover related for one dental.
Because this is what they say.
Anything about
Everything says subject to deductible. What's the deductible?
The deductible depends on if you're a family, if you're single, or if you're a family. And that's gonna be the $6,750 or the $13,500 deductible. But again, the deductible is going to be covered by the health reimbursement account owned by the town.
Okay.
So, I know it's a scary number to the member, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I have $6,000 of risk, but you don't, because that deductible would be self-insured via a health reimbursement account through the town.
Now, let me try to ask this correctly. If a family has major bills not hard to use up those deductibles pretty quickly. What happens in the case where all that savings gets used up? I know, like in my household, I spend $2,000 a month towards my deductibles until I meet it.
So are you a single or a family plan?
Family.
Family plan. So, once that $13,500 is met, the insurance carrier covers 100% of everything.
I hope not every employee does that.
So, and so that brings up a very good point, and full disclosure, right, the reality of this model is we gamble a little bit, right? Because we take all of the risk off of your employees, and we assume that
But
not
y'all
every
don't.
member is going to max out the deductible. If every member maxed out the deductible, the town is going to pay more, right? The town is going to pay more than they're paying today. But what we have seen and what the data shows is not every member actually fully maximizes or utilizes the health plan, right? They go for their annual physicals, if they need a prescription, if they slip in the fall, and like that's how it gets used. It's not every member maxes a, 6,000 single or 13,000 family.
But in theory, you could have some really good low years, but you could have high years too.
Right, and so as you kind of build this model out year over year over year, you could have 30,000 savings one year. Guess what? That savings is town savings, that remains in that HRA, and that becomes part of our annual budget discussion toward the health insurance budget. There's a line item.
You could
for it.
increase that.
Yes.
Savings account.
Yep, exactly.
I
So
see.
if we're budgeting 130,000 for plan year one, and we spend 100 in plan year one, or call it 105, we have a $25,000 savings. We budget, 105, and if we wanna keep it the same for the following year. But we always wanna increase based on, annual increase, because it's gonna be 6 to 8% every year. So that's where we start to see these numbers grow in terms of the actual savings.
Okay, that makes sense.
How long has Bath been doing it?
Since 1/1/2019,
Oh, just last year.
we have 1 full year of experience under our belt.
Do you have anybody that's done it more, like 5 years?
No. Most folks have moved from the Cadillac to the deductible HRA model within the last 2.
I got a question.
Saving part makes sense.
Martha, so can I just, so Billy works for the town of South Bristol. We just switched over to HRA. The town, I don't know for single, but for like a family, and I don't, know what would go on that. For us, the town puts, it's the HRA card, so approximately $9,000 goes on that card. Again, when you go to the doctor's office, you swipe that card. From what I have seen from prescriptions, most of the time they try to go with the most side on the generic brand for the prescription. At the end of the year, whatever money is left over, if you've only used $4,000, that money goes back to the town. Beginning of the new year, they put the $9,000 back on.
So it's been working, good,
And
or?
They
I've-
just switched.
I work
Oh,
for a doctor's office, and generally, there's one in particular. I could show you the card. This is a pretty popular card. People, I've never seen anybody have a problem with it. And like when I go to CVS, we have your card. And I think the most I've had to pay, if you can't get a generic, I think the most I've had to pay might be like $40 for a prescription. So it's been pretty sufficient so far. Mhm.
The one thing that we always encourage folks, and the part of the educational process in the event of change is made, we meet with the members and their families, and we would ask and request to do that because it's important, is to keep receipts. Okay, that's a key component, is to keep receipts, because I think the IRS regulations state that any charge over $100, they require documentation, and the administrator doesn't always request it But if it does get requested, you have to have that backup documentation to state that it was a qualified medical expense. And the town would have the choice to say, we're only gonna cover deductible expense, or we're gonna cover deductible and prescription. I highly recommend to do both. I think it makes sense, because everything is subject to the deductible, so it automatically would help the member, and at the end of the day, a little bit more risk on the town. But I think just from that, again, back to that paternalistic piece, you know, that is where we come in to help with the education of, hey, this is different than what it's a complete 180 from how things have been operating in the past, but it's still very, very strong for you as the employee.
And they'll meet with every employee to explain
We
the whole
would.
thing. And this wouldn't happen like next month, this wouldn't happen.
It kinda sounds like I have an HSA, so whatever money I put in my account and I don't spend, I get to use towards next year's bills. It's kinda like the same thing almost, just for the town.
Correct, it is identical to that model, but it is a town, account, if you will, you know, so they're able to maintain that.
So what is the difference between HSA and HRA?
Yeah, health reimbursement account versus health savings account. So the health savings account is an employee-owned account. That money is put in on a tax-free, pre-tax basis, tax deductible, if you will, right? And they can utilize that for qualified expenses, and that can build like a savings account over time, build interest, and you know, but it's for medical expenses. The HRA is the same thing. The town keeps that in whatever operating account the town wants, a checking account or whatever, and it's tied via ECH or ACH generally, where the administrator draws on that money, okay, for when the actual card gets utilized, pays those expenses to the providers, and then we send reporting on a weekly frequency to Supervisor Hall to determine, okay, Dan Miller had a $100 charge at the emergency room on, you know, last week or whatever. So we always know on a weekly basis how it's being used. But that's the difference. Town-owned, town money rolls over to the town versus an HSA, which is employee-owned, and it's maintained in your name. Does that answer the question?
Mm-hmm.
Prescription glasses.
Trust on it too.
I'd get interest on mine.
Well, I mean, the town owns it,
Right.
instead of paying it up front.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it cuts your monthly bill to the insurance carrier.
Martha, you have it, right, the town insurance.
I have town health insurance.
How's it sound?
I don't know. It sounds okay, I was just nervous about the deductible at first. I hear deductible and it's.
Sounds pretty good. I mean,
It sounds good,
Mhm.
plus, you'll always be earning interest too on the HRA.
I'd like to get the feedback of the
The
guys
town.
at the barn. and
Right,
stuff.
that's what I mean, if they could see what their thoughts are.
Is this
Well,
something
just
I'm
Dan
assuming?
would talk to them.
Right.
I'd like to hear their feedback, but other than that, sounds really nice.
And I, Richie could have you come down some morning, first thing off, and talk to them all together, and
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you know, the feedback with the guys would be, discombobulated. It's, you know, they're monthly, you know, I think they're bi-weekly, right?
They're gonna see,
Paycheck.
they're gonna see
They
the
are.
savings.
So they're gonna see, you know, if
They're
they're a
gonna see,
single,
yeah, right out of it,
you
yeah.
know, a single's gonna see $25 back in their paycheck each paycheck. You know, a family's gonna, you know, it's 142, that's $70 back each paycheck, so 140 a month. That's a win. And then, you know, they're not gonna have a copay.
Usually insurance just goes up.
And I would
Right.
arrange that,
Never
we
goes
would
down.
also have the union rep there at the same
Oh,
time.
that's a good idea, yeah. That's a very good idea.
I'd say once we get their feedback
Mhm.
back,
Hopefully by next meeting.
put it into effect next month.
So we always ask for 30 days to try to get everything to the carrier. It doesn't need to be necessarily, but we just try to give ourselves time. And again, this isn't needing to be done tomorrow. We wanna do it right, we wanna educate, we wanna, you know, meet with each person, make sure everybody understands the process and how it's gonna work, and what, they're gonna have 2 cards now instead of 1, they're gonna have their Excelis ID card and a credit card, so it's gonna be a little bit different than how it's been operating, so we wanna educate on that. And I wanna get the applications filled out so crisp and clean, for each person, which we'll do with them.
And I'd rather have the buy-in from the employees.
We won't make anybody upset. So, that was all I had. I hope that was helpful. Does anybody have any questions?
Answered mine. I understand.
I can get in touch with something.
Well, when he meets with highway, he can go down.
Yeah, I could do that.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Good to meet you.
We will put together a list and send to Judy with regards to, some references to reach out to, contacts, to call and ask questions about it. And, this is the paperwork that we'll need, which is not applicable now, but I'll have it for when it is. And then I'll work with you, Judy, to, confirm the Guardian stuff.
Oh, okay, yeah, definitely, we wanna get that done. And, this is a good time of the year, right, to meet with highway guys?
But she's from the.
They just cost back 2 days a week.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but we'll ask that question of them,
Okay.
cause they're all around at lunchtime too. Domestic partners covered.
Just make sure
You
there's
make that
Still
choice,
everything
but-
paid,
Yeah.
just gotta show up on
Yeah,
the-
we recommend, yeah.
Oh,
Figure that out.
960, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
I just don't want anything.
Does that make any sense to you?
That's-
Can I
that's
come
a
to work
question.
for you?
Sure, you can go to work for me.
Just
What
those 2
paperwork? Where is
days
that?
that you get off.
Mondays and
In
Wednesdays.
this packet that you gave us?
Those are
Yeah.
the days you gotta go.
Just one town paperwork.
Oh,
And you can
Like
also
new
see
group
what's
enrollment.
covered here, Martha, you know, what you have now and what, to make sure it's all the same.
okay.
Any questions? Thank you very
He
much
took
for your
us,
time
no,
this
he
evening.
took us
Appreciate
to
it.
winter
Thank you for
hours this
coming.
week too.
Taking your
Look forward
life
to
in
working
your
with you.
hands.
Thank you.
Stay safe out there.
Unless there's an objection, instead of going through our business, we could let them go next, and then we can just go through everything else that we have to do.
With new business?
Yes.
My name's George Miller, and I'd like to address the town on finding a solution to the flooding problem on the east side of Cohocton, or Maple Street. This has been going on for a couple of years. There's is anybody here not familiar with the property that I'm talking about that's being flooded? You aren't familiar with it?
Oh,
I'm definitely,
Pardon?
I'm definitely familiar with it.
okay.
It's actually an old muck, and it lays, just north of Empire Tractor and covers, like behind Tom Russell's house. There's a muck there, and it floods up into Tom's backyard. Bill Cave just recently bought, Sapansky's property, Mrs. Sapansky's property. It floods his driveway, he just had to build it up. Anyways, there's a tile drain that, my family's owned that property for 50, 75, 100 years. And there was a drain that drains down, into the center of town. It goes underneath Route 371, and somehow that tile has collapsed. And at Empire Tractor, it goes into their septic system and was draining down the side of the road, so it was draining the septic as well as the muck water down the side of the road. They put in a drain to put it in front of Bobby Dom's house. So now the septic water is just going into the front of his front yard. I guess we have pictures here, we can,
What's the tile that put in front of your mom and dad's place?
what was the tile?
Yeah,
They put a drain in there. Jeff Parker is here from, is it Steuben County Soil and Water?
Yep.
And anyways, the town put, when they were gonna redo the road, Route 371, they put in a huge culvert underneath the road, so that in case, Soil and Water could pump to drain this swamp, that they would go underneath the road, cause they couldn't have a hose going over top of the road, it would stop all the traffic. So they put a culvert in so that their hose could go under the road, by my father, Robert Miller's house, and over onto the corner of University Avenue someplace.
Yeah,
and
someplace at
go
University.
into a storm
Go into
sewer.
a DI, which drain, with that drainage system goes all the way to the river. Just above oh shoot,